Day black father, unarmed, surrounded by police. His children watching from the back seat screaming his name. One taser, one moment, and what should have been just another routine day turned into a nightmare, and the beginning of the end for the city's police chief. It was just past 4 p.m. when Marcus Bailey turned off Sycamore Avenue, his two sons in the back seat. The youngest, Jameer, 5 years old, was half asleep, clutching a Spider-Man lunchbox. The older one, Caden, 8, was watching a video on a tablet with the volume low. They were heading home from Caden's after-school robotics club. Marcus was in his early 30s. He worked as a warehouse coordinator, double shifts 6 days a week. He drove a 10-year-old grey Toyota Camry that made a rattling sound whenever he hit a bump. That Tuesday afternoon, he had made a quick stop for gas, picked up the boys, and was headed back to their apartment on Glenmore Drive. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't weaving. He hadn't broken any law. But someone had called 911. A woman, voice calm but suspicious, reported a black man in a car that looked like it didn't belong in the neighborhood. No mention of a weapon, no threat, just suspicion. That was enough. By the time Marcus pulled up to a red light near Crestwood Elementary, 2 squad cars had already started following him. He didn't notice them at first. Then a 3rd car showed up, and a 4th. When the light turned green and Marcus made a right turn, the flashing lights came on. He pulled over without hesitation. No panic, no attempt to flee, just confusion. He lowered the window and kept both hands on the wheel. The boys noticed the flashing lights behind them. Jameer started crying. The first officer to approach was Officer Landon Briggs, 11 years on the force, 2 previous complaints for excessive force, both cleared by internal review. Body cam footage would later show Marcus asking calmly, "Is there a problem, officer?" Briggs didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked Marcus to step out of the car. No explanation, no probable cause mentioned. Just an order. Marcus glanced at his boys. "I have my kids in the back," he said. "What's this about?" The second officer, Sergeant Amanda Delaney, moved in on the passenger side, hand on her taser. "Step out of the vehicle now," she ordered. Marcus hesitated. Not out of defiance, out of fear. "What's going on?" he asked again, his voice cracking. Then everything escalated. Fast. Before Marcus could unbuckle his seatbelt, Briggs reached in and yanked the door open. Jameer screamed. Caden dropped his tablet. Delaney shouted again, "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus raised both hands. Okay, I'm not resisting. My kids just..." That's when Briggs fired. The taser hit Marcus square in the chest. His body locked up. He fell halfway out of the car, slamming onto the pavement, convulsing. His head missed the curb by inches. The children were screaming. Jameer's high-pitched cry cut through the chaos like a siren. Caden tried to open his door, crying, "Daddy!" None of it stopped the officers. Briggs cuffed Marcus, knee in his back. Delaney radioed for backup like a robbery had just gone down. And then came the lie. "He resisted," Briggs said into the mic. "Tried to reach under his seat." Body cam footage would later show Marcus hadn't moved his hands from the steering wheel until ordered to get out. Within minutes, more officers arrived. Lights flashing, traffic blocked. Parents from the nearby school pulled out phones. Some recorded from a distance. Others just stood, stunned, frozen in place. A woman named Evelyn Carter, whose daughter attended Crestwood, recorded a minute-long video from across the street. It showed Marcus on the ground, writhing as his sons cried out for him from inside the car. That video would hit 12 million views within 24 hours. The police report painted Marcus as non-compliant and agitated. It mentioned possible drug influence, though no drugs were found. No weapons either. Not even a parking violation. But the video told another story. So did the body cam footage, which someone inside the department leaked the next morning. By then, the narrative had already shifted. News vans lined Glenmore Drive. Protesters began gathering outside the precinct. Hashtags started trending. Justice for Marcus. Not in front of my kids. Who called 911? Marcus was held for 6 hours and released with no charges. The bruises on his wrists from the handcuffs were still fresh. His sons didn't sleep that night. Jamir wet the bed for the first time in over a year. His lawyer released a statement demanding a full investigation. Meanwhile, the city's police department released a carefully worded statement about standard protocol and officer safety, but people weren't buying it. Then came the bigger bombshell. This wasn't Officer Briggs's first incident, or second. Over the last 5 years, he had racked up 7 complaints. Only one had made it to public record. All had been dismissed internally. Delaney, too, had 2 excessive force reviews on file. And who signed off on everyone? Chief Walter Redmond. He had been running the department for 8 years. Known for being old school, he prided himself on backing the badge and keeping discipline in-house. But that approach had kept a lot hidden, until now. Because Evelyn Carter's video did something no internal review board could bury. It gave the public the unfiltered truth, the sound of a 5-year-old crying for his father, the sight of an unarmed man collapsing from 50,000 volts, the silence of a police chief who had seen this pattern before and done nothing. Public pressure exploded. City council meetings turned chaotic. People lined up with signs that read, "He was a father," and "End qualified immunity." A petition to fire Briggs and Delaney gathered 200,000 signatures in 3 days. Chief Redmond held a press conference, stiff and defensive, claiming the officers acted within procedure. But the body cam contradicted everything. And then, someone inside City Hall leaked emails. Internal correspondence between Redmond and senior staff, showing deliberate efforts to suppress complaint records and bury disciplinary reports. That was the turning point. The mayor, previously silent, broke ranks. He issued a public statement calling for accountability and transparency at every level. And things began to move fast. But not fast enough for Marcus, not fast enough for Caden or Jamir. If you're still watching, this story isn't over. What happened next shook the entire department and brought long-hidden truths to the surface. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what came after the taser and how one call ended a chief's career. The city was on edge. Within 48 hours of the incident, Chief Walter Redmond was under formal investigation, not by his own department, that would no longer suffice, but by an independent civilian oversight board newly convened by emergency vote. Something the chief had fought against for years, but Redmond wasn't going quietly. He doubled down, called the leak of the body cam footage a breach of protocol, and framed the public's outrage as a misunderstanding fueled by social media hysteria. Behind the scenes, though, more cracks were forming. A former department analyst came forward anonymously, revealing that data had been manipulated, complaint trends scrubbed, internal memos reworded, response times fluffed for city reports. And tucked in those buried stats was a clear pattern. Black residents were 3 times more likely to be stopped in that district, and nearly 5 times more likely to experience the use of force. Meanwhile, Marcus Bailey stayed quiet. He wasn't speaking to the media. His lawyer had advised him to stay focused on his boys, on his healing, on building the legal case. But word spread that Marcus had been offered a deal, a settlement in exchange for silence. He declined it. What he wanted wasn't money. It was accountability. And he wasn't alone. A group of local parents, white, black, Latino, formed a coalition. They started showing up to city council with their children beside them. They held up signs with drawings from Caden and Jamir. One showed their dad in a stick figure pose, surrounded by red lightning bolts and police cars. Underneath, in shaky handwriting, "He didn't do nothing." Then, the dam truly broke. A second video surfaced. Not from the body cams. From a Ring doorbell camera across the street. It showed the moment the taser hit Marcus, from a side angle just wide enough to reveal Officer Briggs smiling afterward. That image, that smirk, hit the news cycle like a match dropped on gasoline. By the end of the week, the police union had gone silent. No one was publicly defending Briggs anymore, not even his own partner, Delaney, who had reportedly hired private legal counsel. Chief Redmond tried one last move. He suspended Briggs and Delaney pending full review and gave a televised address meant to calm tensions. He wore his dress uniform, spoke slowly, solemnly, with a folded American flag behind him. But people had already seen the footage. The speech didn't land. Outside police headquarters, hundreds gathered. They demanded more than suspensions. They wanted firings. They wanted charges. They wanted Redmond gone. A young man named Terrell Knox took the mic that night. He was just 22, a local community organizer, barely known before all this. But his words cut through the crowd like thunder. "We're not asking for favors. We're demanding consequences. Because if a man can be tased in front of his kids and the chief calls it protocol, then protocol is the problem." The next morning, Redmond submitted his resignation. He gave no public statement, just a single line in the formal document. Effective immediately. He didn't clean out his office. Someone else boxed up his things. But this story isn't just about resignations, it's about what came after. Marcus Bailey filed a civil suit, not just against Briggs and Delaney, but against the city, citing systemic failures, racial bias, and negligent leadership. The suit named over a dozen other incidents, previously dismissed, now resurfacing, all of them buried during Redmond's tenure. The city tried to settle quickly, but Marcus held the line. He agreed to talks only after a new oversight board was officially installed, with seats reserved for independent civil rights experts. Meanwhile, Briggs was stripped of badge and gun. Delaney quietly resigned before Internal Affairs finished their review. Both are still under investigation. And the 911 caller. That's the part that stuck with Marcus the most. The call itself was legal, anonymous. No charges filed, but its consequences were irreversible. All it took was one assumption, one voice saying he looks suspicious, and a father ended up face down on the pavement with his sons watching him convulse. In an interview months later, Marcus finally spoke. He didn't talk about lawsuits or chiefs or cameras. He talked about Caden, about Jameer, how Caden still flinched when he saw police cruisers, how Jameer had started hiding under beds when he heard sirens. "They didn't tase me," Marcus said. "They tased our peace." That line went viral. It ended up printed on protest signs, hoodies, even classroom posters about justice and fear. And then came the reforms. The city passed new guidelines on use of force, clear, mandatory body cam review panels, a ban on anonymous 911 reports triggering solo police dispatch unless an active threat is present. Mental health responders integrated into traffic stops, a real-time dashboard tracking officer complaints, public and accessible. But not everyone called it a win. Some said it wasn't enough. That one resignation and a policy change couldn't undo what had been done. Not to Marcus, not to his boys, not to the dozens of families who never got a viral video or public outrage. Others, though, saw it as a crack in the wall, proof that accountability wasn't impossible, just avoided, until now. And as for Marcus, he never wanted to be a symbol. He didn't speak at rallies. He didn't run for office. He went back to work, took time off, helped Caden finish his robotics project, taught Jameer how to ride a bike without training wheels. But he did one thing. He showed up quietly at the next city council meeting, sat in the back row, listened, watched, because now he knew, when people pay attention, things change. Not always fast, not always fair, but they change. And sometimes all it takes is one call and one moment to pull the mask off everything.